Welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better, show number 13, where we explore the importance of the outdoors and maintaining life balance. Through this series, we'll be talking to women business owners and to understand their journey. And today I'm very excited to talk to Aaron Owens Mayhew. Hi, Aaron, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm really excited about this. So let me just read your bio so everybody knows a little bit about you, and then we'll dig in. So Aaron is a registered dietitian and an ultralight long distance backpacker with over 20 years of experience as a hiker and a nutrition expert. In 2017, she quit her job, began to prepare for her first thru-hike, and during the process, she realized how uniquely qualified she was to plan and prepare meals for outdoor adventures. She founded Backcountry Foodie, an online ultralight recipe and meal planning platform for backpackers that same year. And since then, she's dedicated her career to helping thousands of hikers enjoy delicious food and improve their performance in the backcountry. So that's exciting. Yes, so that's exciting. And long distance hiking and quality food do not usually go in the same sentence at all.
It's been my mission to change that.
And that's fantastic. So let's take a step back and give everybody an understanding of where you've been and what your business progression, what were you were doing beforehand, and what made you do what crazy things other than hikers think is quit your job and go on a hike.
Well, going all the way back in 2016, I guess I had been a pediatric dietitian for almost 16 years, I guess, at that time, specifically just children with special healthcare needs. So I was very niche down in the field of nutrition that I was really passionate about. I love my job. But with time, just the hospital setting itself had changed. It was more about, I hate saying this about hospitals, but that's the nature of medicine now. It was more about bringing in revenue, more about numbers and those kinds of things. And it just wasn't as much about caring for the patients, which is where my passion was. So, and it got to where the staff had grown to over 60 dietitians. So it was just one of those things where I wasn't able to take the time off that I wanted to, and just all those kind of things that had nothing to do with my career choice. So I just got to a point where I was like, I need a break. I'm not happy anymore. I was commuting 2 hours each way to work. So I decided to up and quit. It was nerve-wracking to do it. Needless to say, I was turning 40. So you don't normally quit your job of however many years. And when you turn 40, you should be saving for your 401k.
Right.
So I up and quit, and it was the best decision I could have ever made. So as you were saying during my bio, that I started preparing for my trip, the thru-hike of the Pacific Crest Trail. I had been a backpacker for years, but I'd never gone more than 3 to 5 days at a time. So I could pull Mountain House off the shelf, or I could just pull some oatmeal packets, those kinds of things. So I could get away with those things, but being a dietitian, I knew I wasn't going to eat that for 6 months. That just wasn't going to be an option. One, I couldn't financially afford to pay that much for commercial foods. Two, the packages are huge. Three, the sodium content. I was just like one thing after another. I started thinking more and more about it. I was like, this isn't going to work. And at the time too, I'd been a long distance runner, a trail runner, and knew that having enough energy and calories was going to be a big deal for me, because I didn't have 30 pounds to lose like some of the thru hikers can over time. And that was a big concern of mine, that being a dietitian, like, I can't go home because I lost too much weight. That's just not an option as a dietitian. That's something I know how to take care of. So long story short, I ended up playing around with food. And once I got back, people loved the idea of my food so much that I wrote a cookbook. And the cookbook went over pretty well, although cookbooks aren't going to pay the bills. So I had to come up with what the next plan was. And then that's what has since transitioned into the current website, which, like you mentioned, the bio is an online platform where I have uploaded all my recipes that I've done over the last, 5 or 6 years. And I do a new recipe every single month. There's meal planning tools on there. So I've written tons and tons of meal plans that people can use as samples. It creates a shopping list for you. Essentially, I've done all the hard work for you in the meal planning, so that you just go in, drag and drop what you want to eat, and it tells you like how many calories, how much protein, how much water. It tells you everything for you.
That's fantastic.
So I've taken what my knowledge as a dietitian and trying to simplify it as much as possible, so that people can eat a little bit healthier, because it's a lot of work to meal plan when you have to do it all by hand.
No, that's fantastic. And I'll have to say, I'm insanely jealous. I'm a wannabe long distance backpacker. The AT's on my list for cross your fingers, 2025.
Oh, nice.
I hope. Yeah. So that's the plan. So being able to, and I don't know if people realize what a commitment that is too. So you're really unplugging for 5 or 6 months.
Right.
And there is some interaction. You do hit town every once in a while. It's a little bit different on the PCT than it is the AT. But what's always amazed me too, and one of the things that you said is that, you know, you didn't have the weight to lose. But what's interesting is the difference between men and women, and the weight loss between men and women on the trail. Wouldn't you believe?
Oh, absolutely. Women tend to get stronger and men tend to get really lean, from what I've noticed.
Well, actually,
men get really,
lean.
really thin, and then women they're not ripped, but they're strong. So
yeah, it's interesting. And I don't know that I would call it really lean. They get really scrawny.
Okay, emaciated is maybe the better word.
Yeah, but it's interesting the difference in body types between men and women in the same activity. And so the traditional long distance backpacker isn't somebody like you that comes with a trail running background. It is quite often people that they've spent one night on the trail, but they get this bug in their head that they just need to hit the woods for a long time, and they're successful, but they don't even have a backpacking or a physical background before it happens. So they're building their trail legs in the first month. So not even thinking about the nutrition that it takes to be an athlete.
Right.
And so was that transition, what was it different for you? It had to have been different for you with your dietary knowledge and prepping for that for yourself.
Right. I think, like I was saying, because I was already in that mindset of I knew nutrition was going to be very important and I had that background. So that's part of why I do what I do now, because I know that doesn't come as naturally to other people and you don't have the time to do all the planning. So that's why I teach master classes now too. So I have master classes where I teach the Backpacking Food 101 for folks that are just brand new to backpacking, just getting into food. And then the next class I have is don't just eat well. So I teach all about what to eat before, during, and after hiking. And then the next class is kind of the next level, is when you're really ready to dive in. I teach the ultralight part of it, as now you know how to eat, you're eating well, but now how do you cut back the food weight? So
oh wow, yeah,
that's part of my new thing that I'm doing with the classes, is that I get to educate people based on a lot of that's on my own experience in the last 5 years too, with all the experimenting that I've been doing. So,
and it's really an underserved area for backpacking prep. I think too, a lot of people they're when you're planning, you're getting the best gear, you're spending hours in front of YouTube looking at videos, and well, actually this is me right now. Okay. So this is what I do. You're watching videos all the time, and that's all you do is watch hiking videos, and you're dialing your gear in and thinking ultralight and checking grams. And then food comes along and people are planning by what's in the Dollar General or the gas station.
And actually, that's my next class that I'm working on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm working on a how to resupply in town class. So that for the folks that don't have the time or to prep 5 months worth of food in advance, or there's always the fear too of I'm going to get sick of eating that same packet of oatmeal 4 months in, and I've already made all the food. I've got a whole stack of 36 recipes next to me. Actually, I printed them out yesterday. I'm working on how to meal plan going to the Dollar General, how to meal plan going to Walmart or just a standard grocery store, so that you can actually make good decisions along the way rather than having to do all that planning up front. So that's in the works for the spring.
That's exciting. Yeah. We'll get into that too, because I want to talk about all of the programs that you have in depth and let people understand about that. But how do you think, did your mindset change once you hit the trail from being at a regular job?
My mindset about working,
hiking, or just in general, how did you feel? Did you feel differently once you started to get a routine and in the woods or actually through the desert in the beginning, but did it change your mindset just being outside for so long?
Generally speaking, being outside is my place of serenity, whether it's a couple hours, a days, or months. I rely on it, just generally speaking, on a regular weekly basis. So for me, going on my long distance, part of the reasons why I do love long distance hiking is it's my time to check out. I try to do the best I can to stay on Instagram and interact with people, but it's honestly, I enjoy the silence. I enjoy the being isolated. I enjoy just being out there, turning off the YouTube, turning off the emails, turning off, your phone ringing, all those kinds of things that for me, it's a life-changing experience being out there. And that's why I love it as much as I do.
In what way? How does it actually change you to clear your head? What does it do for you, do you think?
It lets me turn off, to be honest. I'm able to turn off everything. I'm able to sleep better, to be honest. Most people don't say they don't sleep very well, but I sleep like a rock when I'm hiking. So because I'm actually able to tune out, everything just stays at home and I'm there to be in the moment. I'm there to enjoy the moose, the deer, all the things that I'm not listening to cars, I'm not listening to dogs barking. It's just my place of peace.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it's necessary as well. And I can tell when I haven't been outside enough, right? So sure. just the opposite of what you said. So did you have an aha moment on the trail at any point to say, you know what, I need to start to figure out how to help other people plan their meals?
The funny part, it happened early on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it happened almost immediately. It's kind of funny because at the time I wasn't on Instagram. I didn't know what Instagram was. So I had nutrition interns that rotated through when I was at the hospital that were helping me. They're like, you really need to start an Instagram account. I'm like, okay, you're young enough. You teach me how to do this. Like, I don't know how to do this thing. But it ended up working out really well because within the first few weeks on the trail, I was getting messages from folks saying like, where are you? I want to get the food out of the hiker box that you're leaving. I'm super excited about trying this. I even had a guy I met up with, I forget which resupply spot it was, but he was like, I need you to help me. So we dumped out all of his food out on a table. We looked at some things. It's like, well, how about trying this, do a little bit of that, let's do some of these kinds of things. So it was within the first few weeks that people were like, you really need to like help people. This is something you're good at. You're obviously passionate about it. So it happened early on. So, and it's just been the same way ever since. And now I'm super passionate. I love it. I don't know what I'm going to do else otherwise if Backcountry Foodie doesn't work for some reason.
The saying that the trail provides. And there you are. The trail really provided a career opportunity for you that you might not have envisioned.
Never would have considered it ever. And I actually have essentially made it up. I mean, it's not something that I'm actually teaching other dietitians too that are coming to me now that they're like, like we didn't learn about this in school. I'm like, no, we didn't. We should have, So I have other dietitians around the country that are coming to me and I'm coaching them on how to help other backpackers and starting businesses and those kinds of things. So
wow, that's fantastic.
It's been outside of just hikers. It's actually helping other professionals in my same career field.
That's amazing. We could probably go on this really, really long tangent about the medical industry and the quality of food and the knowledge there, but we're not going to take that tangent. And we'll stay on track. But so understanding that so that means that you really had, how long did it take you to do the PCT first of all?
Unfortunately, I got injured early on. I only made it to Wrightwood, which I think is 385 miles. I injured, it's actually how I got my trail name. Most people don't know my trail name, it's Sling. I ended up injuring my shoulder and I got the trail name Sling because I used my tent footprint to wrap my shoulder into a sling. I used a sling. So that's where that came from. So unfortunately, I was only on it for 385 miles, but I had obviously quit my job, had 5 months worth of food. So I was like, I can't quit now. I got to figure something out. So I went home and rehabbed and then jumped on the Appalachian Trail later in June. And then did 500 miles there and then shredded my quad and had to go home early, but it was really awesome year. I was able to do both parts of both trails.
That's fantastic. Which part of the AT did you do?
So I jumped, and this is partly, I think, why I got injured, is I jumped on right at Harper's Ferry, right as the bubble got there. So those guys had all been hiking from Georgia and were in shape and were, busting out the miles, trail legs were good. And then I jumped on having hiked relatively flat terrain in the PCT to climbing rocks on the AT, completely different muscle use. So I think that's what led to, I had found this really amazing trail family that I loved. So I wanted to keep up and I just pushed myself too hard too soon.
That's hard. That's hard. The hike your own hike story and how true it is and, trying to keep up. And I can understand how that can be a challenge. But what's interesting though, is when you use the word only and 500 miles in the same sentence.
I know, right?
So there is zero failure there,
Right.
because that's 500 miles is serious to begin with.
Right.
So when you finished, when did you come off of the AT?
So I came off the AT, I want to say the early July. I was there right at about a month. I was on there about a month, and ended up coming off of there. And then I ended up doing every year, just about I've done something. So then the following year I came and did the Oregon Coast Trail and successfully finished that because I took my time. I was by myself. So that was successful. So I did that the following year. And that's when I made the cookbook, was in 2018.
And how many miles is the Oregon Trail?
485, I believe. It's 400-ish, something around there.
That's great. And so what have you done? So we're talking hiking resumes. What have you hiked since then, or what have you done since then?
So more of my injury stories. Then the following year I tried the Wonderland Trail, got injured. So then this summer of 2021, I did the Colorado Trail. Unfortunately, I only did 300 miles out of that was 485. I got sick,
Really?
which was really unusual, like with a cold. I stayed injury free. I mean, my food was, all these things were all working out, but I just got a cold and ended up having to go. I ended up in the emergency room. Actually, I got so sick.
Oh, wow.
So I was dehydrated. I was just miserable. So I ended up getting off 100 miles short of finishing, but it was a good experience too. I learned a lot.
Yeah. The Colorado Trail is very different.
Very different
than the others. And there's a ton of road walking on the Colorado Trail too, in comparison to the other trails as well, right?
I didn't experience a whole lot of road walking. The Oregon Coast Trail is very much so. I didn't enjoy the Oregon Coast at all, because there was so much road walking. The Colorado Trail, it was more my new experience with storm anxiety. That was brand new. I'd never experienced that before.
Yeah, being above tree line during the weather that happens in Colorado. Yeah, exactly. So going back to when you came off the AT and you really started to delve into the business, what was that transition like, or how did that work for you?
There was a steep learning curve because, again, I went from being a clinical dietitian in the hospital to now I need to learn how to do marketing. I need to learn how to do a website. I need to learn all these things. So it was fairly slow. It was really overwhelming, to be honest, at the very beginning, because I didn't have all those skills. To be honest, I struggled for a while because I had to learn all those things.
Which is normal for anybody starting a business. By the way.
And I'm a very much type A personality, go-getter. Like, I like to do things. I like to be successful. So I really struggled. And then the following year, my husband hit the same point that I did in my job. And he has all those skills that I didn't have. So he ended up joining Backcountry Foodie in, let's see, I'm kind of thinking timeline. That was March of 2019. So he actually came on full time, and then I was back to being a dietitian full time for Foodie. So it worked out really, really well. So we did that for 2.5 years with him taking on the business part of things.
That's fantastic. And so in the very beginning, was it recipe driven, or were you putting more meal plans and meeting with people? And how did you do that? How did you find people?
So originally it was the recipes, doing the cookbook part. And once I did the cookbook, I wanted to do more coaching because I knew that I enjoy teaching people. I enjoy helping and that kind of thing. So I tried to do nutrition coaching. But at the time, again, this is before I knew the know, like, and trust, how to build your customer base. And I was trying to reach people, but I didn't know how to reach them. So people didn't know who I was yet. They didn't know my skills. So the coaching business part of it wasn't very successful just because I didn't know how to run a business yet. So that's when I backtracked to okay, I need to do more social media. I need to get out there and show what I know how to do. I need to share my recipes. I need to do all those kinds of things first. So I kind of backtracked to that, and then have since built myself back up to now I'm more of a coach than I was initially.
That's fantastic. And so part of that process, can you tell me what you just said again? So
to know, like, and trust.
Yes.
You want your customers to know who you are. They want you to like what you do, and you want them to trust you. And it takes a lot to build that. So how
do you do that? So are there major components that go into putting that together?
So my strategies have been social media. So getting people to, I essentially use Instagram. I call it my business card, I guess you could say. is that it's just kind of showing, here's my face, here's what I'm doing, here's what I have to share. I do some teaching, email newsletters. I do a lot of teaching in the email newsletters, so people kind of get to know what I have to offer, what I like to do. I do a lot of these interviews because I love to talk about nutrition. So I do a lot of podcast interviews because I love it. So people get to know, they hear me, like my passion about food. And I try to do YouTube videos is another one. We get a lot of referrals from people watching our YouTube videos. So just with time and exposure, I think I've really built the trust in people.
That's fantastic. And so when you're out, so let's talk a little bit about where you were, how you met people, and because you were out in the woods talking to people quite a bit too, right? A little bit of van life going on.
Oh, the van life part. So that was definitely actually more isolated. We didn't meet many people because a lot of it was during COVID.
Oh,
So
yes.
we were prime time COVID. So we were actually isolated quite a bit of the time. So we didn't see many people when we were out in the wilderness. And to be honest, because I love being out in the wilderness and isolated so much, van life was amazing. So being able to wake up, have coffee, go out for a hike in the morning, come back and work all day long, or if I just needed a brain break, is what I call them, in the afternoon, about 2:00, I just need to take a time out and go for a walk. It was amazing being able to have that ability to do that. So we've since moved into a house, which I have 4 walls now. I haven't had 4 walls in over 2.5 years.
Which can be a little claustrophobic.
I'm feeling claustrophobic, to be honest. So we're in a significantly larger house than our 60 square foot van, but I feel claustrophobic. So yeah, so when we were in the van, there wasn't actually a lot of interaction with people. It's been more of virtual kinds of interaction, to be honest, with people.
Okay. And so when you were, let's talk a little bit about van life, because van life it's a hot thing right now on YouTube, right? What was that like for you, other than just having your living room? So you say that your house is bigger than your van, but honestly, your living room for your van was really huge because it was the outdoors.
Right.
Right. So were you mostly in one area, or did you move around?
We traveled probably every 3 to 5 days. So we were on the move all the time. We traveled with the weather. So during the summer months, we would be in the Pacific Northwest, where it's nice and sunny and moderate temperature. Then during the winter, we'd be in the Southwest primarily. We did do a full circle of the United States. I think total miles, I think we did about 70,000 miles in 2.5 years. So when we lived in Seattle. So we went from Seattle, went down to Florida to visit our family. Then we did the whole Appalachian Trail up to, not quite to Maine. We went up to the Adirondacks in New York. Then we cut across, and then we did a bunch of circles this way around on the West Coast the rest of the time. But yeah, typically the longest we ever stayed in one spot, I would say, was 14 days. But otherwise, because we'd run out of water. So that would usually be our reason for going into town. But otherwise, we spent most of the time in the National Forest, BLM land, a few campgrounds when we wanted a real hot shower. So, because we didn't have a shower in our van. But yeah, we never really spent time in the van in town. Like you'll see a lot of YouTubers that are at the beach, and camping in town and those kinds of things. So
that's fantastic.
It was pretty amazing.
Such a great experience that so many people don't even have an opportunity to do. So I commend you for that. And do you still have your van?
Absolutely. Yes. We're not ready to give it up. So
now you're going to be sitting in your driveway in the van, right? To feel better.
Right. So we've actually done a pretty good job of getting out on the weekends. So we've been here in our home since October 1st, and we've been to Yosemite twice already. We've been to Mammoth Lakes once. We went to Joshua Tree actually last weekend. So we're still getting out within, if it's a 4 to 6 hour drive, we're getting out on the weekends in it and still sleeping in it. So
that's fantastic. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the business. And so what services are you offering now? And how has that changed from the beginning? And where do you see that going?
So current services, we offer the website, which is the membership platform. Like I was mentioning, all of my original recipes that were in the cookbook are now on the website. So now it's an interactive, think of like allrecipes.com, to where you can go in and you can click and change serving sizes. It switches from US measurements to metric. So we have customers in over 20 countries right now. So folks from around the world can use their own measurements. And it saves things to like a favorites list. So you can go back and refer to like your own little personal cookbook.
Wow.
And then the meal plans where it's just a drag and drop meal plans. So you can plan it for as many days as you want, as few days as you want. It makes a shopping list based on whichever meals you want to take for your trip. So you can go to the grocery store on your phone and it tells you exactly you need like 1 pound of carrots or whatever it is that you need. So that's the site itself. And a part of that are the master classes that I teach twice a month. We are now bringing in guest speakers that are other dietitians that I'm super excited about.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So they are teaching classes on things I don't have experience in. I get a lot of questions about how to eat better before the trip even starts, like how to train and those kinds of things. That's not my specialty. I actually eat better when I'm hiking than I do at home, to be honest. So I have someone teaching a class January 9th actually on bomb-proofing like a nutrition plan for the new year, like getting yourself ready to go for the AT and the PCT. Then I have another dietitian coming in doing a talk on bariatric nutrition for backpackers.
Oh, wow.
Because there's a lot of people that they've done the work, they've lost the weight, they're ready to hike, but now they have a completely different nutrition needs than they did before. So there's a lot of resources that are lacking there. So we're teaching that. I have another dietitian coming in probably in the spring to talk about diabetes and backpacking. So I'm super excited about that one too. So those are the big things that are coming up. And then we're ultimately are going to have more coaching staff too. So those people that want more one-on-one, these dietitians that are teaching the master classes are also going to teach one-on-one coaching. So
oh, that's fantastic.
we're moving toward, we're not there yet, but we're hopefully going to be there probably next summer, having the coaching staff.
That's amazing. And so what are some of the common questions that people are asking about initially? What do you hear from people mostly?
Oh, a wide variety of things. It kind of depends on where they are in their hiking journey, I guess you could say. So brand new hikers are, I know I read you're talking about reading all the blogs and the YouTube videos about honey buns and Pop-Tarts and all those things. I don't want to eat like that. Like, how do I eat like normal food? So I was like, that's easy. We could do that. So I do a lot of teaching of how just to take your normal diet and then converting it into a dried form. For something like example, like if you eat cold cereal for breakfast every morning, you can eat cold cereal in the backcountry. Just take raisin bran, some milk powder, and throw some pecans or something extra in it for more nutrition. It's the same breakfast. So I do a lot of that teaching. I get a lot of questions about how many calories should I eat, which is probably the hardest thing to determine. So I teach a lot about looking into every trip should be different, because like the PCT climbing up to Mount Whitney is very different from doing the Oregon Coast Trail and walking on the beach. So I do a lot of teaching of thinking about the trip itself and not just the golden rule of 2 pounds worth of food. So I talk a lot about that. There's a lot of questions about how to use a dehydrator, how to vacuum seal foods, the shelf life stability of food. So we get a lot of those kinds of questions too.
Yeah, this is such an important area because there's so many people, even I don't know if we're really post-COVID, but we'll call it post-COVID.
Right.
More people are outside and more people are thinking about this. So the timing of what you're doing is perfect, right? And also just there's such a need for what you're doing. And I like the example that you're talking about for breakfast, because I think for a lot of people, they think that it's either you eat like junk or the thought of eating good is too hard. Right. So I'm just going to eat like junk. And so what you're saying too is how do you simplify it and not make it so overwhelming?
Well, and that's what I've transitioned to with time, as the majority of my recipes now, I call them grocery friendly, is that there's things that you can either already have at home in your pantry, or you can go to the grocery store and pick out. You're not having to buy all these crazy powders and freeze-dried this or that and that kind of thing. One of my favorite recipes that are customer favorites is my sun-dried tomato pesto pasta. It's just noodles, sun-dried tomatoes that you can buy at the store. It's got some herbs and garlic and a little bit of salt and some Parmesan cheese. It's super easy. And it's normal food that you would have like at a regular dinner at home. So, and the similar thing, like the breakfast, having that. One of my other favorites is yogurt. So folks don't realize that there's the baby food aisle has yogurt, freeze-dried yogurt melts. Add water and it's regular yogurt. That's all you have to do.
Wow.
And I love eating yogurt for breakfast at home. So I do those. I smash them up, add a little bit of water, put a little bit of granola in it, and maybe some berries, and then you have a regular yogurt parfait that you would have at home.
That's amazing. And now we're talking about quality quality calories and
Right.
and quality food intake versus honey buns.
Right. So then you get that honey bun. And I say that too, is like, if a honey bun's going to make you happy, food needs to make you happy too. So you need to look forward to, but at the same time, you're going to get that sugar high and then you're going to crash. So you kind of have to think about kind of the quality of those calories, like you just mentioned.
A lot of the conversations for a lot of people are just calorie numbers. Well, how many calories a day do I need to consume in order to hike 20 miles a day again and again and again? But it's not just calories. It's how do those calories break down into categories?
Right.
And making sure you're including the protein and et cetera.
Right. And that's what I teach in a lot of the classes too, is knowing that simple carbs, there's a place for simple carbs, like those sugary foods. Then there's a place for complex carbs that are going to keep your blood sugar more even keel. And then there's the place for protein. Like you really need to make sure you have some protein at night for dinner to help you recover, especially when you're in middle age like me. I don't recover as well as I used to, and I've noticed it in the last couple of years. So I really pay more attention to things than I used to. So
I have a question, and let's talk about leave no trace for a second, because I think that what you're doing can impact that greatly. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk. So for people that aren't aware, LNT, or leave no trace, so you want to give a little bit of a background on what that is, and let's talk about the importance of what you're teaching people and how that's going to affect that.
Well, and this is something I've transitioned with time too. For me, leave no trace is leaving the woods as natural as possible. So not leaving my mark in any way that I can. And when I was first on the PCT, I used a lot of plastic. Backpacking food creates a lot of plastic waste, unfortunately, or even the Mylar bags and those kinds of things. And when I got back from that trip in the AT, I went through 450 plastic bags.
What? Oh, yes. And so you're talking about Ziploc bags.
The Ziploc baggies that I was eating out of. And I was like, this is not okay. Like
450?
450. I was like, and this was just me. I was like, can you imagine like how many other hikers are out there every year, and multiply that year after year? I was like, I need to do something different. So I've since transitioned to compostable bags. So for me, and I prefer using freezer bag style cooking, which is adding water into the bag, eating out of your bag, rather than cooking in the pot, because you can clean as best as you can, but there's usually still something left over in the pot. Right. And I just don't like dumping that into the woods, because that's leaving something there that wasn't there originally. And you're having soap or any of those other kinds of things that aren't naturally in the woods. So I really prefer to eat out of my bag, but I've transitioned to compostable bags that I now can feel better about. It's still creating waste, but at least I can put it in the compost when I get home and know that I'm not leaving that amount of plastic there. And then my pot always only has water in it, so I know I'm not leaving soap residue or food particles and those kinds of things.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So you're not, so you're not cooking. So for people that might not be aware, the way that the plastic bags or the Ziploc bags come into place is it's a convenient portioner for food, either that or you're buying freeze-dried food off the shelf and you're using that bag, but that bag also still produces waste. But that's phenomenal. I don't know that I really thought about the cleaning of the pot piece, but that's also very true too. That's really interesting.
And for me, because I work so hard on eating this really amazing tasting food, that it's cleaning out your pot and drinking, because I drink the gray water, because I try to leave as little bit left over as possible, as it totally ruins the taste of your dinner. So I just had this amazing meal, and now I have to like rinse it out and drink the leftovers,
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of my drive too.
There's a hiker trash moment.
Right. So just like, oh, that was an amazing dinner, but
So tell me a little bit about the compostable bags. What are they, or how are they? Where do you find them?
So I'm trail testing with two companies right now. Tech Pack Solutions is a company out of Canada that sells them, and Elevate Packaging is a company in the United States that sells them. So they offer two different kinds of bags. The outer, they call them craft bags. They're kind of like paper bags essentially, but they almost have like a corn lining. So you can still put hot water and cold water in them and eat out of them. You can't store liquids in them for extended periods of time, but you can use them as like for backpacking meals. There's totally fine. So I've been experimenting with those to see. So you can order them online. Unfortunately, right now you only can order them by the hundreds. So that's not, they're thru-hiker friendly, but it's not as realistic for other folks that don't necessarily eat that kind of volume of food every year. So hopefully that's something that might change with time, that and these manufacturers might offer them in smaller quantities. But so far,
and so they work well with hot water too.
They work well with hot water too.
Yep. So you don't have to just cold soak in them, you can hot water.
Yep. And the ones that I don't cook in, that I put like my snack mix in or any other kinds of bars, those kinds of things, I actually will take those home and use those again the next time. So
that's
as
fantastic.
long as I haven't cooked in them, I do reuse them again.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so can you cold soak them, and will they hold it for any length of time, or does it have to be just put it in, let it soak and eat and do its thing and then eat and consume?
They would probably work well for cold soak. The problem with the ones I've been using are too small, actually. I ordered tiny ones thinking like, I'm just going to get as little amount of waste as possible, but the food expanded. So so they're not big enough. So actually my cold soak meals have been in my little Talenti jar is what I take now, the little ice cream jar. So I put them in that just because the current bags I have aren't big enough for that, but you could if you had large enough bags.
Oh, that's very cool. And so where do your business model is moving more towards coaching? Yes. And so where do you see yourself over the next 2 or 3, 4, 5 years?
That's a good question. I'm just trying to fill the need. So whenever someone comes to me and says they have a need for X, then I try to find a way to fill that. So that's where kind of the next step is the filling the coaching part. I'm hoping is going to be the next part. I think we've pretty well maxed out the website itself. We're actually adding a few things. We're adding a calorie calculator based on the science, because the calorie calculators currently online only estimate calories. I'm going to get a little nutrition nerdy here.
Oh, go right ahead. I've got to fix you nerd out and I'm going to fix my light.
I'm going to get a little nerdy.
Please.
The current calculators that are online are misleading because they tell you how many calories you burn while you're actively hiking. They don't tell me how many calories you need in an entire day. So, and that's called your basal metabolic rate, is how many calories you need just to be sitting still like we are right now, just to breathe and your heart and those kinds of things. So unfortunately, I think people rely on the calculators that are online and then undereat significantly because of that. We actually hired a computer programmer starting in January, is going to build it for us to where, and actually we're super excited. We're hoping Gaia is going to work with us too. Gaia GPS.
Oh, wow.
Is that you can put in your hike that you're doing, and then it's going to take that data and dump it into the calculator and tell you exactly what you need, because it knows your elevation to change. It knows how many miles you're going to do. It knows the percent grade. So that I'm super excited about.
That's huge.
That's a huge project.
Really exciting.
Yeah. So we're working with Gaia to kind of integrate those two things. And then the other calculator we're going to do, I get a lot of questions about, is a stove fuel calculator. So the meal plans tell you how much water you need. So at the end, it's going to now tell you, well, you need to heat up this much water. Here's how much stove fuel you need to pack. Because I know I've carried canisters being afraid that I'm going to run out, and I didn't necessarily need to. So we're hoping that little bit of information is also going to help people plan a little bit easier, especially ultralight packers that want to take as little as possible. So those are the two big projects coming up. And then the rest are like doing more classes and more coaching and those kinds of things.
Wow, that's amazing. And hooking up with Gaia, that's just...
Yeah, I'm super excited. So hopefully we can make the two connect. We're excited.
And that's also going to not just the long, that's going to help get you the section hikers too.
Right.
The couple of dayers or
this weekend,
the lashers or whatever. Yeah, totally. That's amazing. So let's talk gear a little bit.
Okay.
What's your big three?
This has been funny because I did a gear list video on YouTube, and I've got comments back saying that I was a retro hiker because all my gear is so old. But I love it. It's like, I don't
like bell bottoms, it'll come back.
Right. It was like, I love my gear. It works for me. I don't feel the need to buy new stuff.
That's fantastic.
So sure. And I've looked into getting a lighter backpack, a smaller backpack, but I just love mine so much. I have the Osprey Exos. I think it's a 58 liter. I've taken the lid off and it's way too big. I don't need the space anymore because I've cut back on all my things, but it fits me so well that I never get a hot spot. Like the pockets are perfect where I want them, and all the new packs just don't have all the features that I want. So I need to send it to Osprey and have them mend it for me, because there's quite a few holes in it, because it's so well loved
and well worn.
It's well loved. It has a nice little odor to it. So.
It's personalized. It's not an odor, it's personalized.
And then my tent.
You can find it in the woods if you get separated from it. Right.
Well, there's been times after my long trips that I put it in the bathtub and I'm like, holy moly, that was gross. I do need a new tent, because this last trip in Colorado, it is definitely dry rotted. I had the Big Agnes Fly Creek the high volume one. I love it too. It's way too big. I don't need that much space, but when you're on a rainy day, like, it's just so nice
There's
to have
so
that
much room. Yeah,
my
tent is too big as well, but I like to be, you can put all your stuff there, and you're sitting up, and have plenty of room to.
Right. So I have a hard time downsizing that, but it is dry rotted. So I definitely have to get a new tent this next season. And then sleeping bag wise, I love my Enlightened Equipment quilt. So that is another big one. And my sleep pad. Sleeping is very important for me. So my sleeping pad, I have the Xped Winterlight, which is another heavy item, but I sleep so well that it's worth the wait, that I will leave something else at home so I can sleep really well. So
yeah, the sleeping is important, and not being freezing cold too. I upgraded to the Enlightened Equipment quilt as well, and wow, it's like sleeping under a cloud that's really, really warm.
Right.
Yeah. And then I made sure that I put a good R value underneath. I've got the X-Therm, and so that makes a difference too. So now it's comfortable and not cold. So as you know, here, even in the Sierras in the summertime, it does get cold.
Oh yes,
at
for
night
sure
too. So that's fantastic. So let's see. So what else? Any big hikes in your future?
Not right now, because got so much going on with the business this year. The business, we've got a lot of stuff we're building this year. So, and also we just moved here, so we're kind of excited just to check out the area. We had no idea the California coast was so pretty, to be honest. I was like, wow, like we had no idea the mountains were so amazing here. And then we went on a 8-mile hike last week, and 11 miles away. We're like, holy smokes, like this is an amazing area.
Isn't that's incredible.
Yeah, so, and it's just in our backyard, so we're kind of excited just about exploring this area, because we haven't spent any time here. So nothing big this year. I hope to actually go back and finish the Colorado Trail this summer. It's 2022 summer, just because I was so close to finishing. I would like to finish it, but no 3,000 mile kind of hikes anytime soon.
That's understandable, so that you've got so much going on. So what do you think, what would you like to leave hikers with? Any thoughts on what they should be looking for, or how you can help them?
Looking for in what way? That's a big question.
Well, yeah, I know it is a big question. So as far as their prep, right, and their food prep, and suggestions for them starting, or somebody that's actually very seasoned, and how to dial in what they're doing.
Well, yeah, so
two different things.
Well, one, I truly believe strongly in nutrition. It does make a huge impact. So if you've dialed in your backpack, you've dialed in your gear, you've dialed in your sleep system, and you're still struggling, don't just suffer. Start thinking about, maybe food's like the next thing to think about. Maybe if you just dial in your snacks a little bit better, then you can enjoy your trip that much more if you're not hitting the wall. When I first started out, I just thought suffering was part of backpacking. To be honest, I just thought that was part of it, because no one ever said, like, maybe try eating better and you'll feel better. So I kind of try to encourage people I was just like, wow, duh. But if you've dialed in all those other things and you're still struggling, then take a look at your food next and see if maybe that's something that could make the experience just that much better.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I want to thank you very much for spending some time here with us today.
Oh, sure.
And it's been such a pleasure. I'm so excited. I'm going to go check out the website and the recipes as well too. And so tell everybody, we're going to put your information in the show notes too, but where can people find you?
So you can find me at backcountryfoodie.com is the website. You can also find me on social media, on Instagram and Facebook at Backcountry Foodie. And we also have the YouTube channel that's also Backcountry Foodie.
That's great. And your master classes are posted on your website, or will be posted for people to sign up?
Yep. So the master classes, there's actually a tab at the top of the website that says master classes. And I
Perfect.
try to schedule 3 months out. So I think we have classes right now all the way into March scheduled.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So thank you. Thank you so much for
Oh,
being
sure. Thanks for
here.
having me.
You're welcome.